All right, up next, we have a panel session on trends transforming digital customer experience in banking. Here we have Samir Khan, Managing Director, Asia Pacific at Codebase Technologies. We have Charles Day, Strategic Account Executive at Onfido. We have Michael Nang, Head of Product at WeLab Bank. Robin Fong, Regional Director, ASEAN at Neo4j. And our moderator, Chulayuth Lochotinan, Head of Thailand at Capco. Over to you, Tan.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome everyone to this session on trends transforming digital customer experience in banking. Just firstly, thank you for Digital Banking Asia for inviting me to moderate this panel discussion. My name is Julayut, but you can all call me Tan for short. I have over 15 years of experience within financial services, mostly in consulting capacity, having began my career with Accenture in the UK and worked my way through 3 of the big fours in Thailand before I landed on this current role at Capco as head of Thailand. And Capco is a global management and technology consulting firm specializing in financial services. So I'm a big advocate of digital banks and this potential to make financial services more engaging and seamless, and also to provide more accessibility for those of the underbanked population. So before we begin, I would like to ask all of our panelists to give a short introduction about themselves, perhaps starting with Michael.
Hi, good morning. My name is Mike. I'm head of digital product for WeLab Bank. So we're one of 8 virtual banks in Hong Kong. We launched in the end of July last year, entirely focused on the retail market. It's my pleasure to speak to you guys today.
Okay. Next up, Charles.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Charles Day, one of the senior account executives for Onfido. Onfido is a identity verification specialist. Personally, I have over 10 years experience supporting companies within financial services around digital identity.
Great. And Samir?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tan. So I'm Samir Khan. I'm Managing Director of Codebase Technologies in Singapore for APAC. At our core, we are a global open API banking solutions provider. We're enabling banks and financial institutions working with conventional and Islamic banking organizations, institutions, as well as fintech companies, in the marketplace to demystify financial services, but essentially what we really do is we look at creating innovative and intuitive, customer experiences along the whole life cycle of onboarding, of customer management, of the experience and the use of financial services for the institution.
Thanks, Samir. Robin?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Robin. I'm the Regional Director of ASEAN in Neo4j. So Neo4j is a leader in the graph data platform, and what we really do is to help customers connect the data together and find connections in them. And the good news is that a lot of our customers in Neo4j are from the financial services industry.
Great, thank you. So we have a panel of experts within their field. So we're coming to the end of 2021 now, and as you know, the past few years have been rather unprecedented due to the COVID outbreak. And even without the COVID outbreak, the availability of new technologies combined with emergence of new customers, younger customers who demand more agile and seamless services have changed the ways that banks are operating. And in fact, the COVID outbreak will have a long-lasting impact on customer behaviors, and arguably it has disrupted the banking industry more than probably fintech disruption has, and accelerated the transformation in most institutions. So in this panel discussion, I would like to get insights from our experts on the trends, on what has changed in terms of the customer experience this year, and looking forward to the customer expectation for next year, and hopefully it will be the post-COVID world, and the emerging technology that can enable this change. I would like to focus our discussion on two important touch points. Firstly, on onboarding and account opening experience, and then the servicing experience. And we'll touch on things like digital lending and personalization in particular. And if we have time at the end, we'll also discuss about the omni-channel experience. So throughout this panel discussion, if you have any questions, please feel free to post it in or chat in. I'll regularly check this and ask the panelists as appropriate. Okay, so I would like to begin with the onboarding and account opening. So Michael, as a founding member and the head of products for WeLab Bank, which is Hong Kong's only homegrown digital bank or virtual bank. In terms of the onboarding and account opening, would you be able to outline what kind of pain points or inefficiencies from traditional mobile banking that you're looking to solve, and how do you go about doing that? You're on mute, Michael.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is a very core topic to us because as a digital first and digital only bank, our entire customer acquisition experience, as well as everything else that we do with customers, is entirely based on mobile, entirely app based. But I think before we talk about that, I had a really important point earlier about the effect and the changes in customer behavior due to COVID. So WeLab Bank launched publicly at the end of 2020. So sorry, at the end of July 2020. So we launched amid the third COVID wave in Hong Kong. We actually went through development and sandboxing through the two earlier waves, and coming through that and coming to market during that period meant that we were coming to market amidst a very significant change in terms of customer behavior, not just in how people perceive are willing to take in financial services, but also how we look at everything from food delivery to groceries to talking to people to even seeing doctors or looking at things like education. So in a nutshell, COVID has massively accelerated the digitization of people's everyday lives in all ways and forms, and in that spirit, it actually helped WeLab Bank quite a lot in terms of setting customers up such that they're willing and more experienced in taking in banking services from their mobile phones entirely. Now, the account opening process, being able to open the bank accounts entirely with your phone, has been a very novel concept that's really only been introduced by the advent of the virtual banks in the last 15 months. Previously, if you wanted to get a bank account, as I did when I first moved back to Hong Kong, I make an appointment down in the branch. I go down with a massive stack of paper, my address proof, my ID, my visa, whatnot. Sign another 30 sheets of paper, wait a couple of days, and eventually I get an account. By using a very simple and powerful and accurate eKYC solution, many customers in WeLab Bank are able to open a full service account in as little as 5 minutes. And all they have to do is take out their HKID, take a couple of pictures of it, take a selfie, right? Blink, smile to make sure that you really are who you are. We've verified your identity. We've gotten the basic information about your demographics, how we can serve you, your address, and that's it. And this ability to be able to open an account just as easily as you open a digital wallet has been revolutionary. It's been groundbreaking in Hong Kong. And one thing that we've seen is that like the convenience of this is not just that people don't need to actually go out to a branch. It's that people can actually go and access banking services whenever they need. So we see our customers engaged with us throughout the day. But one really interesting point is, particularly for account opening, almost 60% of all the accounts that opened with us are actually outside of office hours. So these are customers who in a pre-neobank, virtual bank world, may not have been able to even get a bank account because particularly post-COVID, everyone's work cycles are different, right? So you may not be able to get down to a bank in time. You may not be able to get an appointment. You may not have all your documents with you. With us, it doesn't matter. 24/7, we're there for 24/7. We're there for you. It really makes no difference to us when you come in. Customers' willingness to self-serve has definitely increased a lot. Customers have become a lot more comfortable with the concept of conducting everyday banking services, self-serving online, becoming a lot more trusting and a lot more comfortable with sharing critical bits of information like their personal identification information. And all of this together has been a key part of our success. So these factors that we've just spoken about are one big reason how we have managed to surpass 100K customers in well within the first year of operation, which exemplifies the kind of game-changing digital banking experience that we've been able to deliver to customers.
Great. That's fantastic that you can open the bank accounts. At least in Thailand, most the mobile banking experience that we have is that you have like an account open first, most likely physically, and then you can open an account from digitally from your mobile banking. But with your virtual bank, you say that you can actually open your bank account without having to go to branches at all, and it takes only about 5 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, officially we're a bankless organization. From my perspective, I have 8 million branches in Hong Kong. Here, every single one of these is one of my branches.
Right. And do you issue cards, like debit cards like that you can use with the bank?
Yes, we absolutely do. And this is a great point. As much as we are a digital bank, we recognize and respect that our customers have banking needs and spending needs, whether it's online and offline. Particularly given that we don't have branches, early on it was we made a decision that it's really important for customers to have some totem of WeLab Bank with them. We launched Hong Kong's first numberless debit card, which allows customers to be able to spend with their money, be able to earn with their money, whether it's online, offline, and now be able to bundle that debit card into their mobile wallet as well. So you can just as easily use that card to go and take cash out at an ATM, pay at a traditional merchant, or just tap your phone, use Apple Pay.
Mm-hmm. Great. Do you still deal with checks, or is that something of the past?
I'm sorry?
Checks? Checkbooks?
Oh, no.
Checkbooks?
I personally, the only time I still use checkbooks is when I'm paying for my kids' school fees. Hong Kong is unique in that we still have a lot of little quaint practices like fax machines and checkbooks, and these are things that if you talk to particularly like the younger demographic nowadays, they like to scratch their heads and like, what are you talking about? Like, did you just 3D print something? But in reality, I mean, even like most use cases that explicitly require checks nowadays are slowly progressing themselves able to be able to accept bank transfer, FPS or alternative forms of payment. And this is also a reflection of some of the big changes that have happened post-COVID. Because during COVID, if I wanted to go send a check to my kid's school, it would take 2 weeks because postal services was disrupted in Hong Kong.
It's an obsoleting services, right? Because some of the companies in Thailand are still kind of issuing checks to me. I say that I don't want to be receiving these checks anymore because my excuse was that I don't live near a branch, and they asked me like, where do you live? I told them I live in 2021. No more checks for me. Yeah. So back to the topic of onboarding. So now that I think that the WeLab Bank is doing pretty well in terms of the digital onboarding. I'm just wondering what is next for you and what are you working on for next year to improve that experience? And do you expect any changes in the customer experience and the account opening and onboarding topic?
Sure. Where onboarding is a critical path and a critical part of any user's experience, because it's actually it's a big part of the first time any potential customer first comes in contact with us. So as a bank, you do need to be able to open an account to be able to experience any of the product, services, and the value that we can actually deliver to you. So that means the onboarding experience really sets the tone. And this can be reflected in the way that you ask your questions, like your tone and manner, how you set that out, whether it's intuitive or not. And particularly in eKYC, like whether it's easy and intuitive for customers to be able to do self-verification of their Hong Kong ID and versus themselves. The landscape in terms of the kind of solutions that are in play now versus even 2-3 years ago has changed a lot. There are a lot more eKYC solution providers that have been certified in Hong Kong by the Hong Kong banking authorities, and the level of intuitiveness, the accuracy, the speed, all of this has changed, and these are all ways that we're looking to constantly improve customer experience, because even though eKYC may be something that each customer only has to do once or do every year or so as part of continued customer due diligence, it's super critical. It's a big part of your acquisition funnel.
Absolutely, thank you. And you touch on eKYC. So the topic of digital onboarding relies on technologies that would enable the eKYC and identifying identity fraud. So I would now like to turn to Charles from Onfido to share with us what kind of technology advancement do you see in the market that would enable this frictionless digital onboarding?
Thank you. Michael's kind of already touched upon it. We don't actually support WeBank, but we support a number of other banks offering digital services around the world, like DBS, HSBC, Wells Fargo, Revolut, Monzo Bank, you name it. The list goes on. Essentially, what we do, our technology focuses on government-issued ID documents and then the individual's biometric, in this case, a face, to offer essentially remote onboarding, like Michael was just talking about, in a matter of minutes. So we help the bank essentially verify that the person they're dealing with in a digital setting is who they say they are. So we first have to verify the document itself is genuine. In the same way, you can train human passport control agents to identify fraud. You can train a machine to do the exact same thing, but in a more reliable, consistent, and scalable way. Michael talked about users being able to onboard out of office hours, and this is something that the solution is very much able to do, and it works around the clock 24 hours, never has a downtime, and is consistent throughout this time. Then we have to verify that the individual submitting that document is the one and the same person is the one in the document, and genuine. So we also have to check that the user is able to take a selfie or a video. So we ask them for a biometric in that sense, and we check that they're live, they're able to respond to certain prompts, and make sure, importantly, ultimately, that the same person as the one in the document. Through that process, through these technology advancements in machine learning and artificial intelligence, we've been able to support banks like many of the ones here in actually remote onboarding, on-demand onboarding, and ultimately just providing a much better user experience to their customers.
Great, thank you. I mean, there are a few eKYC companies that provide such solutions. I mean, what would you say would be the key success or the key get right? What is your secret recipe in terms of getting the right experience from digital onboarding using this technology?
Absolutely. I think the one key thing here is to admit that technology isn't perfect yet by a long stretch of the imagination. So don't rely on it fully. I think that's the problem we see with a lot of vendors, is that they will purely rely on the technology alone, or a lot of banks will rely on the technology alone. And quite frankly, it's not there. It's not sophisticated enough to purely do that. So we tend to have a hybrid approach. So this is where we use human specialists in conjunction with artificial intelligence, machine learning, to provide kind of a best of both approach, belt and braces. So anything the machine can't sort of pick up and do very well, the human agent can, and vice versa. So this is one of the key learnings we've seen.
Great. And aside from the necessity, digital onboarding also reduces operational costs. You'd be able to elaborate or even quantify on how AI technology is being used to minimize operation costs for banks.
Sure. So each bank is obviously very, very different, but previously, before digital onboarding, they all had huge back office teams processing all these documents, whether it be in office or a remote location somewhere else. These teams can grow to up to, we've seen hundreds of, sometimes thousands of different people. With Onfido, the aim is to reduce that down to single digits, and sometimes we've been able to remove that entirely, because we obviously, like I mentioned, we have that machine learning AI driven aspect of it first. Then we have the human agents. So we already are providing that service. So with those two in place, we're able to reduce the cost of these manual agents for the bank. So I can't quantify exactly. Each differs hugely, but it's that's this one example.
Thank you. And in terms of identity fraud, what kind of measures of technologies that you use to detect and to prevent such scheme?
Yeah, so we're seeing a whole range of different kind of fraud. It ranges from the very simple all the way up to the very sophisticated. The simple could be, you edit a document on your laptop using any of the free software you can find, editing some of the font, for example, and then all the way up to very sophisticated fraud, where they will impersonate another person with things like deepfake or even 2D or 3D masks that we've seen. So the solution we've trained to detect on the document itself for these type of things, we first of all request the user to actually take a live picture of their document, which is the first step in removing any of that digitally tampered documents. And we check for the font, check that the font in line with all the rest of the font within the document, and in line with the template that we have. And then from the more sophisticated side of things, we're doing what we call heat mapping and texture analysis on the video or the selfie that was taken of the user. So we can see again that it was the real selfie or video that was taken of the user at that point in time. It's not an uploaded video or selfie. And then the response is the prompts that they were asked to do. We can check that that's in line with what was actually requested of them. And then we can see that there's no 2D or 3D mask based on those prompts. So two of the prompts are move the head either left or right as such, and repeat 3 numbers that are randomly assigned to them. So with these sorts of things, with the repeating 3 numbers, for example, we can see that the individuals, what we're checking for is we're doing lip syncing. So checking that the audio that's coming out of the person's mouth is in sync with their lip movement. And you can see with 2D or 3D masks, the lips don't move because it's simply a mask. Yeah. And with deep fake, we see things what we call pixelation damaging, which is as that lip moves, you can see there's aspects of that video that just quite frankly that looks alien. So we can detect for that and pick it up quite easily.
Great, thanks for sharing that. So moving now on to the topics of the customer experience in terms of once you have opened the account, what kind of experiences can you expect and what kind of new features that one can expect from a digital or virtual bank. So back to Michael, WeLab Bank aims to, quote, bring joy to your financial journey. Can you elaborate more on how your virtual bank differentiates from traditional mobile banking in terms of services such as digital lending, payment, or even personalization?
Sure. I think this is like this question comes up a lot, even with my own friends and family. What is the difference between mobile banking and a virtual bank, right? If I already have an account with one of the incumbent banks and I have their app, why do I need to go and get a virtual bank account? And I think that the difference is both very tangible and philosophical. But it really boils down to the fact that mobile banking is designed as another channel to be able to access traditional banking services that were built for the brick and mortar world, where the underlying processes are brick and mortar first. Whereas for us, as a digital first and a digital only bank, everything has been built to assume that we will serve customers only via mobile. So in terms of whether it's the way that we think about operating hours, how we process our information, how we store information, whether the sequence that I'm asking questions for applying for a loan, applying for any kind of product and services is how we do that. None of that is restricted by what I have done before, or the fact that I have a traditional physical form, which still accounts for 70-80% of all my customer interactions. So I have to be able to fit in with them. Now, to give everyone a more tangible example about how this works, we have a personal loan product called GoFlexi. And this is something this is something that's that you can also apply for entirely through your mobile 24/7. You can apply for a personal loan entirely on your mobile phone for up to $1 million, $1 million Hong Kong dollars, in the middle of the night, 24/7. We can approve, I can quote you, approve you, and disperse you within within a day, sometimes in the matter of minutes, or in the matter of hours. And we can do this because I don't have the legacy, I don't have the burden of legacy brick and mortar systems, brick and mortar processes. So these are ways that we can provide much more instant, much more on-demand services to customers, which is another big thing that has changed in terms of customer expectation. Right, people everyone's a lot busier. Everyone has very different lifestyle, very different timing. Being able to only provide banking services 9 to 5, it would no longer cut it, right? So this is all part and parcel to how we provide much more personalized, much more on-demand banking experience to customers. Another avenue that we're going down on is intelligent banking. So as a digital first proposition, data is a really important part to how we run the business. Not only for us to be able to optimize and know how we can better serve customers, but also as a proposition to be able to unlock value for customers as well. So in this spirit, we've recently launched a feature called Insight, which is an analytics tool that lets customers get much more insight and understand their spending. Not only how much are you spending with us overall, but how what your spending looks like versus your peers, what your spending looks like versus people like you, versus the prior months, what that looks like when you look at it by sector, by industry, by time, by theme. And these are all bits of information that users would have been able to put together manually in the past, but it's extremely time consuming. And most people really don't have the means or the willingness to do so. But we believe that with the advent of technology, we can provide this kind of insight and services to customers, and this lets us help customers really understand what their money is. So through that, we can better put them on the path towards managing their money, saving money, growing their money. Because at the end of the day, our view is that money is a means to an end. No one wakes up and thinks, hey, the first thing that I really want to focus on is growing my money. Right? People money is an enabler. our long-term goal is to be able to make that enablement much more seamless, much more like something that can happen automatically for customers in the background, and doing so entirely using technology.
Absolutely. I mean, if money doesn't solve your problem, then you need more money, right?
Yeah.
So I think I've came across the socially driven time deposit. Is that one of the features of your virtual bank as well? And can you elaborate?
Yeah. The socially driven time deposit was one of our flagship products when we first launched. So the product before we launched GoSave, historically it was very difficult for customers to be able to access time deposits in Hong Kong. And time deposits, as much as it's still a very traditional state product, it's a really important part of how everyone looks at money, right? Because there's everyday super liquid money that you need to keep aside to be able to pay for your car, pay for gas. There's money there's like on the other end of the spectrum, there's money that you don't expect to use for another 3 to 5 years, and that's money that you can put into funds, into investments, into savings plans. In the middle is money that you don't need every minute, but you do still want this money to be able to grow. You don't want this money to be to just idle, and that's historically the space that time deposits come in. But prior to the advent of the virtual banks, and particularly to the advent of GoSave, trying to get a reasonable rate on a time deposit in Hong Kong through an app or through web banking was near impossible. It really relied on you going down to a branch, literally negotiating with the RM or the person behind the counter to nickel and dime and try and get a little bit better. In part because banks wanted to pay extra for new funds, and there was no way for systems at that time to be able to systematically differentiate new funds, and they needed a person to actually do this. So it's difficult to access. The entry criteria for these funds were super high. So unless you had at least 100K honky, which is like 20,000 US, you're not going to be able to get a respectable rate. And once the money is in, you're locked up for the entire tenor of the deposit. You can't get your money out without having to pay exorbitant penalties. So when we were doing initial customer research, then we realized, hey, this is a big pain point. This is a big issue for our customers, right? That they wanted something accessible, easy for them to be able to save, without having to deal with a lot of the pain points that we had just mentioned. So the concept behind GoSave is, hey, everybody wants to save, right? What if we harness up the power of everyone, and be able to all collectively save better, right? So GoSave is a super fun social product in that the more people who save together, the better the rate everyone gets. And in the spirit, the product itself is also super flexible. So if you do need to take your money at any point in time, that's fine. No penalties. Just go. We understand. In Hong Kong, we love transportation, and we love using that as analogies for a lot of things in life. One thing that really encapsulates the spirit of this flexibility and that very unique Hong Kongness is the little red minibus. And the little red minibus is something that I think almost everybody in Hong Kong has used at some point in time. It is super fast, super flexible, and super reliable. This is one thing that you can use 24/7. And it's a super fast way for you to get from A to B. And if you ever want to change your plans in between, it's okay. You can just easily hop off anywhere. And that very much reflects the spirit of GoSave, which is why it's become literally the image for GoSave, to the point that sometimes when we go and talk to people outside, they're like, "Oh, I've never heard of GoSave, but I know that minibus savings product." "Oh, you're the minibus bank." Um, I mean, that's one way that we've been creating this socially powered savings product.
Great, thank you. So one of the key differentiators that you mentioned for a virtual bank is personalization and the ability, which is the ability to the bank to adapt and to tailor the experience to each individual customer. And this can be enabled by a smart recommendation engine to seamlessly recommend the right product at the right time to each customer. So with this, I would like to ask Samir, who is the APAC MD of Codebase, one of the global leading digital banking solutions, to share his views on the use of data analytics and to enable this personalization.
Right. Thanks, Tan. Of course, there are many aspects within this realm of digital onboarding, which is one topic which Michael and Charles have covered quite a lot. And from my view, it's so when we look at experiences, we kind of relate it to how do we make the experience better, which means that yes, there are a lot of credit agencies that can help you do the EKYC bit. But how do we help the bank ensure two things? One is that to be agile in terms of how most of the users who are using digital banking or services, mobile-led services, are already very savvy in terms of using social channels like Facebook and things like that. So one needs to start thinking from a perspective of where you storing that data, how you're able to use that data. And when I say manipulate, it's like massage that data to derive needs of the customers, the experiences, the kind of services they access, and therefore help the bank to make recommendations. Now, there are two things I'd like to share out here. One is just from a user perspective, what we've done is we understand that in the last 18 months plus, everybody is using the mobile device to open accounts, whether it's a traditional bank or whether it's a digital bank. But they're also using services from the bank, right? So what do they use services most? Either to avail loans, credit is a very important aspect of banking. The other, probably the most used aspect in banking within the fintech realm is payments. So we looked at payments and we said that people are very savvy, but they still need to go onto a mobile device to initiate a payment and so on, right? So how do we really make payments possible on the applications that they use? Now, you and I could be chatting, on WhatsApp, and if we went out and you paid over a card, it would be interesting that I mean, if we wanted to go Dutch, let's say, and we paid $100 for a drink and dinner, and I want to give you $50 back. How do I make it easier? So from an experience perspective, what we did was we enabled payments through social media channels, so you don't have to drop out of the app that you're using. It's pre-integrated into, and it's agnostic. So the solution we have does not require a tie-up with, let's say, WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. It just works across different channels. So that is one thing that we. The reason I bring that about is there's a lot of work that goes into understanding how customers use the application, where they're spending their time, what are they actually doing over the mobile banking app, right? And from there, to suggest to financial institutions, look, this is the usage pattern and this is what you can do. Now, that and to help make sure that if a person is buying a lot of groceries per se, what offers can be given, what kind of card, what kind of schemes they have, and all that comes from aggregating all the usage data, helping the bank use that data intelligently and come up with solutions. So more than speaking about a technical dive on this, it's possible today. So what we've tried to make possible is, if a person wants to make a payment, they can make a payment through any channel. They don't have to really move back to the mobile banking app. If your app is there, in form of widgets, in form of messages, if they're using a particular product, if they even something like buy now pay later, right? Of course, e-commerce sites are offering that. Klarna does that very well. But if banks wanted to really make avail that particular service, how quickly they could do that, because it requires instant decision making for that piece of credit, and it's an interest-free credit, right? So how does, at the point of sale, how do you really offer that product? So it's using data, but not just using data, because there are a lot of apps, there are a lot of companies that look at how do I get all the data and probably throw out information which the customer may consume. If you need to take a step beyond and tell the bank or tell the financial institution that there is a problem associated with this, and what is the problem that we want to solve. So if you want to solve payments, let's try and look at the infrastructure that we have and build something around it. I mean, we have productized everything. So, we have a stack that if you want to make payments easier, yes, we can make payments easier. If you want to give them a BNPL, because that's something that people are talking about a lot and they expect that from the bank, then, there's a solution ready for that. And all this comes from understanding usage of the customers. So it is one step behind to just think that I can collect the data and upsell and cross-sell and offer, different products that I may have. But it's more about getting sure that you not only send that message out, but you also start engaging and you provide for a payment to happen. You provide for an instant credit to happen. I heard earlier Charles mentioning, and very good points, right, about onboarding. Now, yes, you can. There is machine learning. There's AI that helps you to understand whether whether it's a deep fake, whether it's a real person, so on, and read the card and stuff. But if the bank, and in some countries it's regulation, so banks, if they actually want to really make a call, right? So what do? Especially in SME banking, sometimes you need the person to come to the branch. How do you make sure that your application is powerful enough that you do not have to move from your onboarding app and go on to Skype for Business or any other platform to actually make that connection, an agent calling and physically asking those questions? So within the app, if you can have that capability where a call can be initiated, that technology is available today. It's used in medical consulting so many times now, and that technology is again repurposed and can be used out here. So we do that. We've done it the other way around, where we started with financial services and somebody wanted to buy our product around medical solutioning. But all that is available today with the stack of APIs, with the architecture that we have, and the platforms that we internally have, the backend that we have, where we collect all the data and then advise to the financial services that we work with, the institutions that we work with, that look, this is your vision, and these are some of the things that we are noticing which are important to you in terms of a strategy. So when I get into conversations, these are conversations that I'm always engaged with the financial services institutions, the bankers, to think through what we can do. And we are having those conversations of what we're going to do in 2022.
Great, thank you. So personalization can only happen when you have data to analyze. So the customers will have to trust the bank with the data that they can share. I would like to ask Robin, who's the ASEAN Regional Director of Neo.js, to share with us the use of technology to prevent and detect fraud, and to elaborate on how banks can enhance customer experience, can enhance their customer data privacy and data security.
Yeah, thank you, Kuntan. Yeah. So before I go into the area of fraud detection, let me just take a step back and really explain about this technology that Neo4j has to offer, which is really a graph data platform. I'm sure that all of you, the audience, who have heard about this phrase, data is the new oil, right? I think this phrase has been going on for a long, long time. And that is why we are seeing a lot of financial institutions investing a lot of their investments in storing data, analyzing data, and in machine learning, right? So what we are trying to do is really to take this whole data concept into the next level, to really look and focus on the connections and the relationships of the data. So in other words, right, the data relationship or connectedness is the first-class citizen and not after the fact. So how does this apply in the context of fraud detection in digital banking? Now, we know that in this pandemic, more and more people are going online to do their transactions, and that is why we are also seeing an increase in the in fraud. Now, and banks have traditionally invested millions of dollars in fraud detection systems, right? So, and we all know that. And a lot of these systems are actually rule-based systems, right? Meaning they look at particular scenarios, for example, the recency, frequency, the amount of the value of the transaction, the location of the transaction, and based on these rules, flag out potential fraud cases. And that is well and good. However, what we are starting to see is that fraud today is no longer just a single person or a single entity. Now we are starting to see more and more fraud rings, people colluding together, right? So, for example, you can have 2 or more people coming together to form a fraud ring. And what they will do is that they will create synthetic identities, shared identifiers, for example, email addresses, phone numbers, addresses. And what they will do is that this ring members will then create the identity and sign up to banking services, right? So they can apply for credit cards, personal loans, overdrafts, and so on. And using the traditional rule engine, all these people will pass, right? That's no problem because they pass the rules. But then what will happen is that over time, these people will start to collude, right? They may, for a period of time, do very legitimate transactions, make purchases online, pay on time, everything is well and good. But and because of this, the banks will then start to increase their credit lines, right? Because these are worthy customers. And up to a certain point in time, one day, this ring will suddenly just bust out, right? They will coordinate, they will max out all their credit lines and start to disappear, right? And then this is where the banks will start to chase after them. But because a lot of these fraudsters use synthetic identities, you are unable to really catch them. So this is where a graph data platform like Neo4j can really help, because here we actually triangulate all the data together. We help you to see where do people have shared identifiers, where do they have shared addresses, and so on. And you're able to visualize that at scale. You're able to visualize that in real time. So therefore, you are able to do this fraud detection at many different points in the whole cycle. For example, at the point of creating an account, you can run graph algorithms to look at this. At the point when a credit balance has been threshold has been reached, or for example, when a check has bounced, right? So at different points in time, when you run through all these scenarios on the graph, you are able to actually pick this up very, very quickly. So this is how we stop a fraud, by just looking at the relationship of the data. Now, of course, the other thing that right now is also very important is this whole area of data privacy, right? Data privacy and how data is being used. And in that same aspect, in Neo4j, what we have is we have this framework called a data privacy shield framework. And what it really does is really to be able to connect all the personal data that the bank collected to be able to know what systems and what applications uses the data, how they are being used, how the data is being exported, how the data is being imported, and what are the permissions that different people within the bank have. And all these things are plotted or are shown on the graph, right? And you can see that whole relationship being established. And if you try doing that using traditional data stores like a relational database, that will be very, very difficult, very, very tedious, because a relational database is not designed to have very, very deep connections. So this is how Neo4j helps in preventing fraud and in helping to ensure the privacy of data to comply with different regulations like GDPR, CCPA, or even in Singapore, PDPA.
Great, thank you. And the graph technology, this is real time, right? Or almost real time?
Yes. So that is a very interesting question, Kun Dan. The thing is this, right? A lot of people talk about real time. Yes, we can do it in real time, but we can also do it in batch or near real time. So it really depends on the importance, right, of the timeliness of the information. So for example, in fraud, yes, it has to be in real time. But sometimes in other use cases, like in looking at data lineage for compliance, some of this can be in batch or near real time. But we can do it for different time intervals.
Great, thank you. In the interest of time, I think we have just about 5 or 8 minutes left. I'm just wondering if our audience have any questions that they would like to ask our panel.
We actually have one question, Tan. I'll post it on stage for you to read out.
Okay. Okay. So could you give us one or two great examples of seamless experience that your site face with customer? And this is a question from Sekona from Cambodia. One or two examples of seamless experience that your site face with customer. Perhaps it's for Michael.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that question. One of the best examples is literally how we get customers started. So in as little as 5 minutes from the first time that you actually come in contact with WeLab Bank from our website, you could have downloaded the app. You would have completed your account application. You have your account. You would have been able to fund your account. You would have been able to add your card into your digital wallet, and you're already spending with us. And from there, you can already see, hey, these are the ways that WeLab Bank can help me save better, help me borrow smarter, help me spend smarter, all within 5 minutes, all within the one same session, the one same experience. And again, this goes back to the way that we've actually been designing the bank philosophically from ground up, because the entire experience is digital first and digital only.
Great. Any other questions?
If I could add to that as well, that would be great.
Sure.
Mainly because it's the same sort of experience. We had a bank in the Philippines, have a customers scattered all over, often in very remote and inaccessible places. And previous to using our solution, they obviously were having to go down to the branch. Sometimes this took hours on public transport and obviously a cost as well. Then they had to wait for a member of staff for them to even be seen, then process the application, and then it took 2 or 3 days to actually get an account open. Once we were able to be embedded with this solution, or with the bank, they were able to do on-demand verification for free from the comfort of their homes, from their mobile. So I think this is like the change that you've seen, and obviously this is now more important because of COVID and the inability to now get down to branches because of travel restrictions.
Yeah. Thank you.
Quintal, I just wanted to add one good use case out here for a seamless experience. We've already spoken about, video calls and checks that happen instantly. We have a customer who said that the challenge is that people are getting a lot of loans, right? And we sometimes do not have complete visibility. And if this is an instant approval mechanism that your system allows for, how do we know what is the exposure of the customer, right? So now, and should this data be made available to the bank, or should this data be made available to the customer? So what our application has allowed for, let's say for a user to do, is when I apply for a loan and I get a approval, let's say 10,000, just for the purposes of this conversation, it also gives me a view of what my outstanding would be on credit cards, on mortgages, on auto loans, on unsecured loans. And it allows me at that point, two things can happen. And this is all done within your 4 or 5 minutes. So I've got my instant approval, but it's also given me a view of what's my outstanding. And if I want to kind of settle those outstandings first, because it'll give me a kind of a green to red, where I can come down to orange or yellow and make it green by settling a few outstandings that I may have. This is a great user experience, because sometimes many users also tend to make purchases, use credit, and do not know what their exposure really is. And for the bank to also have a possibility of credit balance transfer and things like that, so it solves a lot of problems, and we've made that happen within 4 minutes of the whole user journey. So I think that's a very good example or a use case of a seamless process where you get the loan, then you also know your exposure. The bank also gets to sell you a balance transfer product, or I can take the loan and reduce my exposure. It will not really get reduced, but it'll get transferred to one particular institution, but it can be managed, meaning I can reduce my interest payouts and things like that. So it gives a little more flexibility in one single process. So I thought that was a very good example, and it's being well appreciated by both the bank and the users.
Great, thanks, Samir. I think our time is up, just about. So on behalf of our panelists, I would like to thank DBA once again for inviting us to share our experiences and ideas on this important session. And thank you for the audience for tuning in to this session. I hope you've found our discussion insightful and enjoy the remaining events that DBA line up for you today. So over to you, Jed.
All right. Thank you, Tan. Thank you for the rest of the panelists for that great discussion. So right now, if you have any questions, more questions for our speakers, you may reach out to them privately, or for specifically Samir from Code-Based Technologies, Charles from Onfido, and Robin from Neo4j. They respectively have their own booths over at the booth section. You can catch them there together with their companies. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.